I welcome you to Essencology Q&A. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and today we're going to discuss the White Knight Syndrome. When we speak of the White Knight Syndrome, I've discovered and seen for so many years how there are people who I believe are suffering from a reverse transference. Those who understand psychology at a minimal, or counseling at a minimal level, you come to understand that reverse transference, I'm not talking about necessarily the spiritual transference where we pick up spiritual conditions or states from individuals who are connected to things, but this is similar. It's a reverse transference where instead of someone who is leading, someone who is the dominant figure, then what occurs mentally, person projects upon them as they are trying to counsel, as they're trying to help. But what happens, this projection that comes from the other individual that's usually being helped, it causes the individual to feel responsible, obligated, and dedicated to them. Typically, this occurs in men, but it also occurs in women, where we find that there is a man who typically may have a good job, who may be educated, may be very gifted and talented in life, but something within him causes him to always rescue specific women who have availed and who have become a part of an abusive relationship, and 9 times out of 10 they've been abandoned. This individual doesn't necessarily link to that individual for sexual means or even for intimacy, but he's drawn into this relationship with the understanding that he is responsible for helping those who have been abused. But as he begins to help those who have been abused, and typically he enters in with a scenario where there are no strings attached. But deep down in the unconscious mind, there are strings. There is a desire to be intimate. There is a desire to be connected and to be dedicated to the person he's trying to rescue. And so what occurs, this generally will cause a person who is operating in this scenario, they would generally be drawn to individuals who are not necessarily those who make the wisest choices in their connections or the wisest choices in entering into relationships. And so what occurs, they move from one relationship to another that leaves them in a worse state than before they entered into that relationship. And so this individual seemingly enters in with the process and with the mindset of delivering, with the mindset of taking care of, with the mindset of forging a unity that will be beneficial to the young lady. And so in many cases, the individual is drawn to that which seems to be a helpless victim, because within the unconscious mind, this individual receives great pleasure and pride from lifting someone, great pleasure and pride from developing someone, helping them to get back on their feet. But the issue is because there is an underlying desire to connect. Some people find people who are victims to be very appealing, very arousing. And so the fact that individuals who are operating in the White Knight Syndrome seem to get satisfaction from delivering, satisfaction from being needed, satisfaction from being strong or the source of strength. What occurs is that even though the individual seemingly within the conscious mind is desirous of delivering, helping with no strings attached, he has already attached at the unconscious level and the subconscious level because he has a need to deliver someone. He has a need to be the strength for someone. And so in so delivering and in so acting and in so forging this relationship that doesn't begin as an intimate one, he feels fulfilled. He feels strengthened. He feels in charge. But the problem comes in when the expectation that there will be a reciprocal, that the female that he has spent time with elevating and pulling in, and she may have children, taking care of the children. But the female has never entered into a relationship that forges intimacy. In her mind, they are just friends. In her mind, they may be friends with benefits. But in most of these cases, the women have never committed to an intimate relationship. They have never committed to enter into a viable relationship that is lasting. And so they enter into it thanking and feeling good that someone cares for them. But in most cases, the female sees the deliverer as a brother, as someone who cares, but in a specific way. And so they do not have the intimate attachment, but they enjoy a brother figure caring for them. It helps them to recapitulate, and it helps them to see. But the problem comes in is that the individual who is the rescuer, who is performing the white knight syndrome, always desires to go further. And so he is further than separated and further than offended, because unconsciously he feels that if the person is truly appreciative, they should know that he's really forging and rescuing that individual, that they might have a relationship. And so the white knight syndrome, it sends multiple messages. On one hand, I'm not here because I'm looking for sexual favors. I just care about you. I want to help you get back on your feet. But deep down, the individual is receiving gratification and really desires, after rescuing, cleaning up. Now he knows that he has something valuable, that he has spent time and money, and he's built this individual. And so he knows what he has. He knows now that this can be a viable relationship. But the issue is, it never started as building a relationship between the two from both perspectives. And so the white knight syndrome often leads the individual who is trying to rescue, who's trying to do a good thing, often leads them to feel that they are abused, that they should just escape and detach from it, and that perhaps there are no good women. But the issue is, when we begin a relationship and there are no strings attached, most people who start a relationship that way consider it and continue it unless both discuss and come together and exchange and begin to have a dialogue where I feel that it's time to take this relationship to another level, into another direction. And so the white knight syndrome, there is a compelling within the unconscious to deliver, to rescue, to clean. And the underlying issue, typically, that's usually unknown by the individual who's doing it, is that if I clean this individual up, if I continue to build her self-esteem, I begin to understand her. Now I've created a relationship where I know her. She should be able to depend on me. I understand her weaknesses and her flaws. And so, in the interim of me rescuing her, I've also developed an individual that now I know I can relate to successfully. I'm your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and we're out of time, and this has been Essencology Q&A. God bless.